Okay, it's that time of year again. Apple has released some new Mac products with the new 14 and 16-inch M3 Pro and M3 Max MacBook Pros. And hey, I'm planning on buying one. I'm planning on buying a 16-inch M3 Max MacBook Pro. And I want to tell you my reasons why I'm buying this laptop. Usually when I make videos going over why I'm buying a certain product, they seem to do pretty well. The audience seems to be interested in what I'm buying. And I like to walk you through that because I guess, in its own way, it can probably be beneficial to see my thought process around buying something, and it might help you with your own purchasing decisions, even if they don't exactly align with what my needs are. So yeah, I kind of wanted to make that video today and tell you why I'm buying the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I don't want to repeat myself again, but there you go. And hey, don't say I always make these videos, because I don't. I actually got a lot of criticism 9 months ago, which is actually a lot sooner than I thought these new MacBook Pros would be coming out. But 9 months ago, I said I was not buying the M2 MacBook Pros, and I didn't. So don't say, oh, you always make a video when you buy a new product. What's the difference? Hey, even I don't buy all the latest Apple products sometimes. Sometimes I skip a generation or two. And yeah, I kept my M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro, and I didn't upgrade to the M2. So you're probably wondering, why now? Why are you upgrading to the M3 Max? What enticed you so much, Greg, that you had to go out and buy this MacBook Pro? And why are you switching away from the 14-inch screen size to the 16-inch screen size? What changed in the 2 years that you have been using your 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro? Well, I'm going to tell you why. So, let's talk about that MacBook Pro. Currently, again, I'm using an M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I do have some regrets with that purchase. So at the time when I bought that M1 Max MacBook Pro, I bought the max specification of it. I got it with 64 gigabytes of memory, which I was very happy to do. It turns out I didn't need all that unified memory, but I also got it with the maxed out M1 Max chip, which came with extra GPU cores. And what I didn't know at the time was that when you were buying the M1 Max version on the 14-inch model, you technically weren't getting all the performance that you could get on the 16-inch model, because Apple underclocked the GPUs on the 14-inch model because their 14-inch version of the laptops did not have as much cooling as the 16-inch version. Like the 16-inch version had like a larger heatsink, it was able to dissipate heat better, and it could run the Max chips at higher clock speeds. You got more performance out of it. And even the 16-inch had like an exclusive high performance mode, which the 14-inch model did not get. So I wasn't disappointed by the performance of my 14-inch model, but I kind of thought, well, maybe I didn't need to get the maxed out M1 Max chip if the 14-inch model couldn't even really take full advantage of that chip. So that's kind of where my thinking was. I probably could have saved a few bucks there. The other regret I had was with storage. Now you're probably thinking, oh, you overspent on storage. No, I didn't spend enough money on storage. And yeah, it's gonna make your head spin because I got the 4 terabyte model. So you're probably going, well, that's plenty of storage, right? Not for me, apparently. Obviously, I edit videos for this YouTube channel, this great YouTube channel that you're watching right now, the Greg's Gadgets YouTube channel, the peak Apple or tech YouTube channel, and all of YouTube, right? There's no one better than Greg. So I edit video, and video files take up a lot of storage. I even work a lot with compressed video files like H.264 and H.265. And even with all those compressed 4K video files, I still managed to fill up my 14-inch MacBook Pro within a few months. Now, yes, even if I upgraded to the 8 terabyte version of that MacBook Pro, I still would have eventually filled up all of the 8 terabytes with video footage. But the way that I currently do my work is that I try and edit internally on the device, and then when I'm done with those video files, I will offload them to an external drive, like an external SSD. So while that currently works with the 4 terabytes, right? Having 8 terabytes of storage, which is what I plan to do with my 16-inch MacBook Pro, gives me more of, it gives me more storage to work with internally and gives me more of a buffer in between projects. So I'm not offloading projects as frequently, which can, be a little bit time consuming. And I can go for longer periods of time without having to offload those projects onto an external SSD. So that is going to save me time. It's going to make sure that I can work with, multiple projects for a longer period of time on those really fast internal drives on the MacBook Pro. There's kind of another reason why I didn't necessarily need to run out and upgrade my MacBook Pro, and that's also because I kind of have a dual workflow going on. I also own an M1 Ultra Mac Studio. I know you're watching at this point going, this guy's really spoiled, but hey, guys, don't forget, I run a tech YouTube channel, primarily covering like Apple devices. So I cover a lot of products, it's for work, and yeah, I currently edit on an M1 Ultra Mac Studio and my 14-inch MacBook Pro. Now, the Mac Studio is absolutely great. Has a ton of headroom, even with the M1 Ultra. That is a computer where I've literally faced zero issues with my editing performance. And even with memory, my 14-inch MacBook Pro has 64 gigabytes of memory. My M1 Ultra Mac Studio has double that memory. It has 128 gigabytes of unified memory. And you might be thinking, well, you're just a YouTuber. You can't even use up that much memory. Here's a screenshot of my memory from the other day. Wasn't even doing anything special. I just let me see how much memory I'm currently using so I can kind of show like a realistic workflow. And it's over 64 gigabytes of unified memory. So yeah, I know a lot of people are going, oh, you're just a YouTuber, you don't need that much memory. Apparently I do. Apparently I'm capable of using up all that memory on my Mac. And that's gonna come into play a little bit later. So yeah, currently I have these dual workflows. I'm working on an M1 Ultra Mac Studio and a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I even had this thought process when the M2 versions of the MacBook Pro came out, which I did not buy. I thought even then, I was like, let me see. Should I just buy like a new MacBook Pro and simplify my process and get off the Mac Studio? And it crossed my mind for a second. I'm like, maybe I should get off this dual workflow. But at the time, I thought like the laptops, you know, they weren't necessarily completely competing with my Mac Studio. And my thought process was, well, you have this big, powerful Mac Studio. Even if you bought a new laptop, this thing's still gonna be more powerful than those M2 versions of the MacBook Pro. So I was like, it doesn't make sense, right? I'm gonna keep the Mac Studio, I'm gonna keep working on that, and we'll revisit this conversation another day. Again, I didn't know it would be so fast, just 9 months later, but here we are, and I revisited that conversation. So the reason why I didn't upgrade to M2 was because I didn't think the upgrades were substantial enough in terms of processor speed, in terms of, you know, the GPU advancements were actually pretty good, but, you know, just overall advancements. And the big one for me, looking at it from a laptop perspective, was the unified memory. On the M2 models, you can max out to 96 gigabytes of unified memory, and I was like, okay, that's great, but like I mentioned before, I was used to 128 on my Mac Studio. And now with M3, guess what? Apple did it, right? They are packing in 128 gigabytes of unified memory on the M3 Max chip. And the more I look at this MacBook Pro, the more it makes me think that, yeah, this is basically probably gonna take a lot of the performance that I have in my Mac Studio and put it into a laptop. Like the way I look at M3 Max is, this is the Mac Studio in a laptop. 128 gigabytes unified memory, 16 CPU cores that are gonna be faster because they're on the M3 architecture compared to my M1 Ultra Mac Studio, and faster GPU cores, all that stuff. So that has me really excited. And then you might be wondering, okay, well, you had a 14-inch MacBook Pro before, you liked it so much, why are you going with the 16-inch model? Well, this one was hard for me. I really enjoyed how portable my 14-inch MacBook Pro was. Like, that 14-inch model was just like a compact powerhouse. I have never seen anything like that in a laptop before. The size and power, to me at the time, were unbelievable, and in a way, it's still unbelievable. The 14-inch model is a great machine if you really want maximum portability and maximum performance, and I still think that. I still think these new 14-inch M3 machines are gonna be good. But when I was looking at the chip configurations again, you know, it made me wonder. You're having all these additional CPU cores, you're having all these additional GPU cores, and with that 16-inch laptop size, I think we're gonna run into a similar situation where the 16-inch model is probably gonna perform a little bit better. Is it gonna be like a major drastic difference? Maybe not. Maybe it's gonna be like a 10% performance increase. But as someone that's looking to replace the Mac Studio and their 14-inch MacBook Pro, I thought, why not get as much performance as possible this time, especially now because, again, the M3 Max has additional CPU cores on top of the GPU cores, and that really interested me. I wanted to get the Max model this time because I wanted the additional CPU performance as well. Another big factor for me is I'm traveling more. Now you might think, wait a minute, wouldn't the 14-inch size be better for you for traveling? And yes, kind of, right? Like if you're taking it on an airplane, I think the 16-inch is probably gonna be like, I don't know, that might be too big. And carrying it in your bag, the additional weight, I'm kind of worried about that, to be honest. But the other thing is, Yeah, the 14-inch is gonna be more portable. I'm probably not gonna like lugging the 16-inch around, but when I do get to my destination, you are only working with one screen at that point. And with the 14-inch size, it does feel a little bit cramped in the Final Cut editor at times. And I know 16-inch, it's not like working with like an external monitor. Like if I'm working at my studio or at home, this thing is still probably gonna get plugged into like the studio display. But when I am on a trip, I guess it would be nice to just have a little bit extra screen real estate. And I'm planning to edit more on the go. So that is something that was a deciding factor, and it was very hard. I was like, well, portability is, it makes sense, right? You're going on more trips, take the 14-inch, but then it's like, well, when you actually get there, you might be a little bit more productive because you have that bigger screen size, and then you're also gonna have the additional battery life that the 16-inch provides, 22 hours versus 18 hours of battery life. And it's like, okay, that kind of pushed me over the edge. It was the factor of having that bigger screen size and then also having the additional battery life. And then, again, replacing a Mac Studio and a MacBook Pro all in one. I said, let's not leave anything to chance. Let's go with the bigger model. And also, I'm pretty fortunate. I get to review a lot of things. So, after 2 years on the 14-inch size, there's also part of me that's like, let's just try something new, right? Like you kind of get bored of using the same thing every day. So even though I really like the 14-inch size, part of me is like, all right, we're gonna try something new. We're gonna go big. We're gonna see if we like it or not. Maybe it's gonna be a disaster, but it's kind of exciting, right? It kind of gives you like a little bit more excitement. It's also why I went with the space black model. I actually usually prefer the silver colors on MacBook Pros. But now apparently they got like this new darker black color that doesn't show fingerprints as much. And I'm like, okay, that's new. We'll take any excitement anywhere I can get at this point. So it's like, all right, I'll go for the bigger 16-inch model. I'll go for the space black model, even though in my head, I'm like, maybe, you might prefer the 14-inch model. But I'm like, all right, let's try something new. And in terms of like my configuration for my exact spec, again, it's the space black 16-inch M3 Max MacBook Pro. And I know you're probably watching at this point. You're probably gonna hate me when I throw up the specs here. So I'm even a little embarrassed to say it. M3 Max, top end, 128 gigabytes unified memory, 8 terabyte storage. It's the maxed out M3 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's the most expensive MacBook Pro you could buy. Yeah, I know. You're probably like, that's overkill. Greg, what are you doing? At this point in my YouTube career, and I feel very fortunate to have done so well in my YouTube career, and I thank you all for that. Thank you so much for watching my videos, making all this stuff possible. I really do appreciate it. Right now, my biggest bottleneck is time. I don't have enough time in the day to get what I want to get done, if that makes sense. Like anything that can save me time is very precious, or anything that I can take advantage of when I have spare time, again, is precious. So I'm sure this M3 Max chip is gonna export faster and all that stuff, and the editing process is gonna be smoother, so it will save me time there. Having this device be an all-in-one solution rather than working on two separate computers is gonna save me time. Having 8 terabytes of storage, like I mentioned before, and not having to offload video files as frequently is gonna save me time. And that's the reason why I'm getting this maxed out model. Does Greg need a maxed out model? Does he need it? No. Honestly, I've worked on very low-end machines during this whole Apple Silicon transition. And there are times where it's like, this guy could probably be fine on like an M3 model with like 24 gigabytes of unified memory. My video projects aren't usually that complex. They've been getting a little bit more complex, but still, it's not. I don't want to toot my own horn. So yeah, saving time, I guess, is the reason for it. And I don't know. It feels kind of embarrassing to make a video and go, I'm buying the maxed out model. And it's like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's spoiled. What a jerk this guy is. So I get that. But yeah, I just wanted to be honest with my audience and walk you through my decision-making process. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. If you did, give me a like. If you want to see a full review of a couple configurations of these MacBook Pros, I also bought some base level models so I can kind of help you out there. I think those are going to be more popular models than the one I ended up purchasing for myself. There's going to be full reviews on those. And eventually there's gonna be a full review on my 16-inch MacBook Pro. I'll tell you if this was a $7,000 mistake, which it might be, and maybe I'll use that for the video title. That's actually pretty good. So yeah, subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.